Hey guys, in today's video, I'm going to analyze the 2025 Australian Open Women's Semifinals. And let's start with Sabalenka versus Badosa. Paula Badosa is a very complete player, once ranked number 2 in the world, but her ranking slipped and she finished 2023 ranked 64 in the world. Last year, she played a lot better and finished 13 in the world. And she surprised me in this tournament because she took out Coco Gauff. I expected her to go in the quarterfinals. I did pick that, but I also picked that Coco Gauff was going to win the whole thing. And that didn't happen. Badosa beat Gauff, and that was a very impressive performance. Sabalenka is one of the most dominant players that we've ever seen on the WTA Tour. Her shot speed from the baseline is comparable to players on the ATP Tour. Her serve has improved tremendously. She is barely serving any double faults, and her first serve percentage is around 70% in this year's Australian Open. When Sabalenka gets the chance to dictate play, she's unstoppable. And in this matchup, Badosa was simply too passive. She was allowing Sabalenka to dictate play. And in the first set, Badosa started strong by breaking Sabalenka, went up 2-0. But when Sabalenka found her rhythm, Badosa's passive play was going right into the hands of Sabalenka, who was gaining confidence as this match went on and won the first set 6-4, and quite frankly blew Badosa off the court in the second set, winning it 6-2. After the Australian Open, Badosa will be back in the top 10 at number 9 in the world. And Sabalenka, by reaching the final, also guarantees that she's going to stay world number 1. And the second semifinal match was, quite frankly, one of the best tennis matches that I've seen in a long time. Iga Swiatek against Madison Keys. I had picked Iga to make it through that match. I did pick Madison to make the semifinals, and I was wrong. But this match was such an interesting one because Iga's kryptonite is facing a player who possesses a big serve and powerful ground strokes. Now, I'm not saying that Iga cannot beat players like that, but when Iga is off her game, she does tend to lose to players like that. For example, Noskova or Alexandrova have beaten Iga, and they're ranked much lower than she is, obviously, and they possess that type of game, a big serve and powerful ground strokes. Now, the reason why this is a tough matchup for Iga is because when she's not playing well, the serve can still be a liability. And when the other player is serving well, even though Iga's got a phenomenal return, she's at a huge disadvantage in those matchups. Now, again, I'm not saying that this happens all the time. Iga is highly capable of beating players like that. But when Iga catches a bad day, she can go out to a player like that. So it was clear to me that Madison Keys, who possesses one of the best serves in the world, who possesses one of the most lethal forehands in the world, had to come out and play incredibly aggressive to have a chance to beat Iga. So in the first set, to my surprise, Madison came out with the completely wrong tactic. Maybe it was because of the nerves, I'm not sure, but she wasn't bringing the heat on the serve. And Brad Gilbert excellently pointed this out after the first set. He said that she's simply serving too slow, allowing Iga to get into rallies where she obviously has an advantage. Madison Keys needs to turn up the heat on her serve and serve faster. And guess what? It was almost as if Madison listened to Brad, and she did exactly that. Once that second set came around, Madison started serving faster, started dropping the heat, not only on her serve, but also on her forehand and even in the return game. She started blasting returns, and she absolutely dominated that second set and won it 6-1. But I want to point out one thing that Madison did in the first set that can be helpful for all of us. Because Madison wasn't playing well. She was down 5-2, but she clawed her way back into that first set and tied it at 5-5. And despite her losing that first at 7-5, the fact that Madison found her rhythm, even the score from being down 5-2, helped her confidence early in that second set. So even though the set might be lost in your mind, it's always worth the fight, because even if you lose that first set, if you fight, you can change the dynamic of the match, shift the momentum, and it can help you in the second set, even though you lose the first set. Now, the third set between Keys and Swiatek was one of the best sets of women's tennis that I've ever seen. It featured so many ups and downs. The level of play was sky high. Madison Keys continued to serve really well. And I do want to point out that Madison changed her serve technique from a platform stance to a pinpoint stance. And I made a video a while back titled What You Can Learn from the Best WTA Serves. And when I analyze WTA serves, I see similarities in these three technical elements. The vast majority of WTA players, including the greatest servers of all time, all have a higher toss, all serve with a pinpoint stance, and they all serve with a lag. And these three technical elements are all ways to create power more naturally. So I always wondered why Madison served with a platform stance, and I'm so happy that she's now serving with a pinpoint stance, and her serve now to me looks more natural, and I do believe that it is better. And her serve working was so important if she was going to have a chance against Iga. And I'm going to go back to a match that Madison played earlier last year in Wimbledon, where she was facing Paolini, and the draw was wide open. Madison Keys had another chance at a Grand Slam. She had a look when she faced Sloane Stephens in the US Open final. She also had a chance in 2023 when Coco Gauff won the US Open, where she was dominating Sabalenka in the semifinals, ended up losing that match. So in Wimbledon, where Krejcikova beat Paolini in the final, Madison Keys had the golden opportunity to get the Wimbledon title. But unfortunately, after being up a break in the third set, she got hurt and she couldn't run anymore. But she continued to play, and she had the chance at 5-4 while being injured to serve out the match. And I made a video about her serve choices in that particular service game. And somewhat similar to the first set against Iga, Madison Keys, when serving for the match, injured against Paolini at 5-4 in the third. She didn't bring the heat. She was slicing some of the serves, and to me, that didn't make a lot of sense because Paolini was getting some of those serves back in play. So sometimes, regarding big servers, and Madison Keys surely is one of the greatest servers of all time, when you see a first serve percentage that's high, that's not necessarily always a positive thing for a big server. Talked about Ben Shelton maybe needing to go for more when he faces Sinner tomorrow. You can check out my preview of the men's semifinals in a video that I made yesterday. Madison Keys' first serve percentage, when it's high, it's not necessarily a good thing. She's better off bringing the absolute heat on that first serve and maybe missing a few more serves here and there because she, at no cost, wants to be in an extended baseline rally with Iga Swiatek. And Madison continued to serve exceptionally well in that third set. And she gave herself many opportunities to get the break of serve. She was up 4-3, had 15-40 on Iga's serve. At 30-40, Madison blasted a forehand return right on the line. Iga got it back in play. Iga ended up holding serve. Madison Keys had another 15-30 when Iga was serving at 5-4. She couldn't convert the break there. And she then, unfortunately, ends up losing her serve at 5-all. She made a very poor shot selection on break point, hitting a drop shot to Iga, which is something very dangerous against Iga, who is so incredibly fast and so good at those type of balls close to the net. And at 6-5, Iga in the third, 40-30 match point, Madison Keys blasts a return right down the middle of the court. And I've talked many times that blasting a return right down the center is a phenomenal tactic to employ, because if you hit it hard enough, you can lock up your opponent. It's very hard to play that specific ball that's coming right through the middle. And Iga ended up making a backhand error off Madison Keys' return. Madison Keys ends up breaking Iga's serve, and we get into a super exciting tiebreak up to 10, where Madison was serving phenomenally well, playing the important points with so much confidence. She was being aggressive, not scared to win, and she ends up taking out Iga and makes it to the Australian Open finals. If she loses the match against Sabalenka, Madison Keys will be ranked number 7 in the world. And the first thing I thought of when Madison Keys ended up winning this match, that she quite frankly should have lost. Iga had match point on her serve. I thought of a term that I use all the time. I made several videos about it, and that's tennis equilibrium. When you, as a tennis player, put yourself in positions to win, when you put in all the hard work, you are not always going to be unlucky. Yes, you are going to lose some matches that you're supposed to win, but you also are going to win some matches that you're supposed to lose. So it was so nice to see that a match like this, that often at this stage went for Madison's opponent, this time went in Madison's favor. Now the final between Keys and Sabalenka is going to be an absolute blast fest. Madison Keys' serve and forehand are huge, but so are Sabalenka's. And it's going to quite frankly come down to who can keep their error count lower, who can play a cleaner match, and most importantly, who can serve better. Madison Keys is capable of beating Sabalenka at this stage. She was so close to making another US Open final in 2023 against Sabalenka, who she dominated in the first set. So maybe tennis equilibrium will strike again and Madison Keys will finally win her first Grand Slam title, who right now is by far the best player on the WTA Tour that doesn't have a Grand Slam title. Let's see what happens.